Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Common Council for the City of Huntington for September 12, 2023. Prior to the beginning of the business meeting of the council, we'll have an invocation offered by Pastor Zach Working with Hope Rising Congregation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Christy McElhaney. All those who wish to participate may rise at this time.
Thank you, sir. Let's pray. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for our mayor, our council members, and all parties involved in this meeting here tonight. I ask that you grant them wisdom and discernment in all matters, that the greatest good for all may be achieved here tonight. And it is in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll call the meeting to order, beginning with a roll call.
Blumeke.
Present.
Chapman.
Present.
Belton.
Present.
Funk.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Marshall is absent. Pike.
Present.
Thank you. Having established a quorum for conducting of business, first item of business before council is opening a public hearing from Huntington Alert requesting historic designation for 20 and 22 North Jefferson Street property. This time we'll open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public here to address council on the matter? Not hearing or seeing any at this time, we will close the public hearing and move along to consideration of minutes from the previous meeting. Is there a motion for raising the consideration of the August 29th minutes?
So move. Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion and consideration of the minutes? Not hearing any at this time, we'll call the question in favor of adoption of the minutes as presented. Christie?
Chapman.
Yes.
Belton.
Yes.
Funk.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pike.
Yes.
Blumeke.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving along to reports from committees, boards, or commissions. Charlie?
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Paul?
Nothing here.
Joe?
I have nothing.
PJ?
Nothing here.
Todd?
Solid waste, they're talking about September 16th, might be a tire day. They're going to have a limit of 12 tires per family. And there is they're checking on it, but one of the commissioners was saying that GFL may be just taking all the recycling to a landfill. So they're trying to figure that out and trying to hold them accountable for making sure it gets recycled. That's all we talked about.
Thank you. Dave?
Nothing.
Next item on the agenda, petitions or comments from citizens. Do we have anything?
Not this evening, thank you.
Nothing this evening. Under old business, second and final reading of ordinance 16C23. Christie?
Ordinance 16C23. This ordinance, if adopted, would amend Section 98.41 of the City of Huntington, Indiana's Code of Ordinances concerning the timing of the discharge of consumer fireworks within the city.
Is there a motion to allow for second and final reading of ordinance 16C23?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion and consideration by council members? Not hearing any at this time, we'll call the question in favor of adoption on second and final reading. Christie?
Belton.
Yes.
Funk.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Pike.
Yes.
Blumeke.
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Thank you. First item under new business is something from the administration for council. And I have brief comments before we have students come forward to introduce themselves regarding this initiative. But in December of 2019, I learned that the mayors of many cities in Indiana had created youth councils to engage young leaders in their communities. And so last year, we piloted an approach with Huntington North Student Council for the city's semi-sepcentennial celebration, because the group of adults around the table quickly realized we were good at planning events for adults or families with young kids, but we are no longer hip and cool. And so we asked the student council to help with that, and they helped us plan a February dance held at the courthouse rotunda, and also a May drive-in takeover on the last day of school. And so with the success of that behind us, reached out to Principal McLaughlin from Huntington North earlier this summer, and we began working on a pilot program for this school year of 2023 and 2024 to engage Huntington North juniors in local government projects and procedures to strengthen Huntington itself and train up our future leaders. And so, leaning into our mascot, actually, it turns out that Viking societies practiced participatory democracy through assemblies called things. And so we have before ourselves the assembly here gathering called That Huntington Thing. These 13 Huntington North juniors will represent their peers as they learn about local government and manage projects chosen jointly with the mayor's office. And under Indiana Code 36-4-13-1, I will be appointing a youth advisor to the Common Council. And so that youth advisor from this group is not a member of council, but they will be otherwise a full participant for the school year and the duration thereof. And so at this time, I do want to invite the students that are participating in the program to come forward at this time, and if they could line up across the front. Each of them are going to introduce themselves to council this evening, providing their name, parent's name, as well as an interest or hobby of theirs. Following that, we'll have everyone lined across the rail, and Christy will administer the oath for their service. So don't be shy, and one of you can break the ice for us. Step right up. So go ahead and step to the podium, microphone here, and bend it down so you can address council with it. Step right up, Isaac.
All right.
So go ahead and make sure you speak directly into the microphone so we can hear you well.
My name is Isaac Grog. My parents are Roxanne and Jeremy Grog, and I like to play tennis and basketball for the high school.
Great. Thank you.
My name is Maxwell Robrock. My parents are Shayna and Brad Robrock, and I have my own business. Consider I'm not 18, so I can't call it that, for landscaping. So.
It's a subsidiary of your father's business, right? Yeah.
My name is Luke Runyon. My parents are Michael Runyon and Caroline Granon Runyon. I enjoy singing and dancing in Mercy Singers.
My name is Cameron Working. My parents are Tyler and Ann Working, and I play soccer for the high school.
My name's Hayden Bailey. My parents are Phil and Tyann Bailey, and I love to play basketball.
My name is Lily Poling, and my parents are Stephen and April Poling, and I dance at Beverly Johnson's, and I'm a cheerleader at the high school.
My name is Maya Wolf. My parents are Brad and Dio Wolf, and I'm a cheerleader and gymnast at Huntington North.
My name's Sarah Christ, and my parents are Bethany and Michael Christ, and a hobby of mine is gymnastics and cheer.
Hi, my name's Gabriella Betterly. My parents are Ann and Ken Betterly, and I do cheerleading at our school, and I dance at Beverly Johnson's.
My name is Marissa Trout. My parents are Mitch and Julie Trout. I participate in 4-H, and I play basketball for the high school.
I'm Kinsey Cobbs. My parents are Eric and Taryn Cobbs. I like to play piano, I like to sing, travel, and I ride horses.
Excellent. Welcome.
All right, I'm going to have you raise your right hand. And then when I say, I state your name, we're going to start with you, and each person is going to say their name, okay? And then you're going to repeat after me. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kinsey.
I, Gabriella Betterly.
I, Sarah.
I, Lily Poling.
Me after this. Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution.
That I will support the Constitution.
Of the United States.
Of the United States.
And the state of Indiana.
And the state of Indiana.
And that I will honestly.
And that I will honestly.
Faithfully and impartially.
Faithfully and impartially.
Discharge the duties of my trust.
Discharge the duties of my trust.
As the Viking thing.
As the Viking thing.
For the city of
For the city of Huntington.
To the best of my skill, knowledge, and ability.
Best of my skill, knowledge, and ability.
And parents, so you're aware, we do document, we do have photos, and we'll get those available to you as well, since you didn't get to see their faces while they did the oath. So.
Congratulations, you guys. That's great.
You want to pull them up? Councilman Chapman would like a group photo with everyone. And so we're going to, as you sign, we're going to go ahead and bring everyone up front across the arch here. Yep. And council members, you don't get to get out of this either, so you can join for the group photo as well.
Yeah, we'll all have to come in pretty close, probably 3 or 4 rows even, so tall people in the back. Looking at you, PJ. Actually, I don't know anybody's names. We'll have to all slide down that way. And then, all right, all the way over here on the end, if you can step from here. Thank you, Christy. All right. Paul, can you take half a step to your left? You're behind Joe. You cannot. Okay, got it. Okay, I'll take 4 or 5 in a row. Christy. Shut that real quick. Bear with me. All right, we'll get there. Everybody's backlit right now. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, everybody ready? Okay, we got it. Thank you.
Moving along to the next item on the business agenda, we have first reading of ordinance 19C23. Christie?
Ordinance 19C23. This ordinance, if adopted, would establish local preservation guidelines for 20 and 22 North Jefferson Street. The guidelines will serve as a tool for the city's Historic Review Board to preserve the historic character of this property under Chapter 153.
Is there a motion to open discussion and consideration of ordinance 19C23?
So move. Second.
Motion and second. Director Kiplinger.
Good evening. Before you tonight, 19C23, an ordinance to locally designate a single-site historic property, the Pastor Building at 20 and 22 North Jefferson Street. This matter was before the Historic Review Board at their meeting last month. The Historic Review Board recommends it favorably to council for the consideration of establishing this. The property possesses historic and architectural merit of a degree that warrants its preservation. The Pastor Building is located on the west side of Jefferson Street, south of the intersection with the Norfolk Southern Railroad at 20 North Jefferson Street in downtown Huntington. It is attached to the Milligan Block to the north at 30 North Jefferson Street and 16 North Jefferson Street to the south. The building is a contributing resource within the Huntington Courthouse Square National Register Historic District. The Pastor Building was constructed by Lambton P. Milligan in 1893. The Queen Anne-style structure is rated as notable in the 1997 Huntington County Interim Report, 2nd edition. The Pastor Building, designed by local architect M.D. Brenneman, is a tangible record of the importance of commerce in Huntington during the 19th and 20th century. It exhibits significant architectural details as an example of the Queen Anne style applied to commercial architecture. It is associated with a person of national significance, Lambton P. Milligan, who constructed the building, as well as a person of local significance, Adam Pastor. Pastor, followed by his son Edward, operated a grocery store at this location for over 3 decades. The property is presently owned by Huntington Alert. With us here this evening is Brian Zerker, a member of Huntington Alert. They have nominated this property for local designation. Of course, in your package, you've received a copy of the preservation guidelines. These are what the Historic Review Board will use to evaluate proposed exterior changes to the structure, should there be any. I can say that Huntington Alert has, I believe at this point, a purchase agreement with someone from the West Coast who's interested in purchasing this building and coming in and revitalizing it to its former glory. So I'm happy to answer any questions. If there's anything I can't answer, I might turn it over to Brian, but.
Questions by council members? Discussion.
So the designation does what?
So certainly. So the designation adds what we would essentially term local protections. And so that would, in theory, prevent someone from making non-historically appropriate changes to the building, painting it hot pink, putting metal barn siding on it, replacing vinyl windows, those sort of things.
So Huntington Alert has purchased it?
Huntington Alert has owned it for several years. They've worked through Indiana Landmarks with some grant funds to stabilize the building. That's namely what they do. There's a number of buildings that Alert has done that with over the last 30, 40 years. But they are in the process of selling that building to a new buyer. And that new buyer is aware that this is being proposed.
This only affects the outside of the building, not
Exterior only protection.
Are there other buildings near that building that are already designated?
Off the top of my head, you would have, probably the nearest one would be the UB building. And that was also one of the last 2 most recent properties that were designated. Okay, thank you.
Not hearing further discussion or consideration from council, then we will call the motion in favor of approval on first reading of ordinance 19C23. Christie?
Funk?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Blumenke?
Yes.
Chapman?
Yes.
Felton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the thing that everyone's here to see and hear. It's the presentation of the 2024 budget. And so, should have sold popcorn. Council members, as we present the budget to you this evening, a reminder that the actual ordinances and approval of which will come in subsequent meetings. Tonight is an opportunity for department heads to present the information and the hard work that they've done in assembling this budget together, and then allow you to answer any or ask any initial questions you may have. Council will be reminded that, of course, department head leaders may have answers for you that they don't know this evening, and so they will get those to you in a timely manner if they don't have it off the top of their head this evening. So with that, a few opening comments before we hand things over. And so should I get my right order here? Council members, as we discussed earlier this summer, the city is in good shape financially and otherwise. The 2024 budget being presented to you successfully holds the 200 through 400 series across all departments to a slight decrease from 2023 expenditures. This will require the 2024 Council and Administration to utilize additional appropriations more extensively than we have in previous years, and the city will have the capacity to do so should the future Council and Administration see wisdom in doing so. The 2024 budget proposal will also utilize excess cash reserves in Fund 7704, health insurance claims, without dipping below our fund reserve guidelines. Any organization's #1 asset is its team members, and we don't wish to lose any of our team in any department to our competitors in the public and private sectors. Our raises over the 2021 through 2023 budgets for the majority of the workforce have positioned us reasonably well. That said, since January of 2020, inflation in the American economy has been projected to be 21% through January of 2024. Hiring police officers has become more competitive for additional reasons. The Indiana State House recently approved a new state police funding matrix, which starts rookie troopers at a salary of $70,000 that maxes to $115,000 annually at 15 years with no further promotion. They increased assignment flexibility and decreased other requirements to increase lateral recruitment from other units of government. That's us. Huntington also ranked 87th out of 158 in base pay amongst our municipal peers in 2023, and this has led candidates that we wanted to hire to choose other departments. In light of the circumstances detailed above, I am recommending to Council an assertive strategy that remains fiscally responsible given our good financial health. It is a slight reduction from what was proposed in June. For the 2024 budget, I am recommending the Council consider a competitive increase for public safety wages and benefits, resulting in a 13% increase for the Huntington Police Department members, in addition to raising the longevity cap from 20 to 25 years, a 10% increase for Huntington Fire Department members, in addition to raising the longevity cap from 20 to 25 years, and an inflation response increase for all other city employees, meaning 7% across all of the departments and elected offices. After due consideration and following feedback from Council, I humbly request your support for this reasonable and responsible budgetary plan. And with that, then, at this time, I want us to invite Scott Nicola up to present on the airport budget.
Good evening. Just a quick update for everyone, since I normally just see you once a year. The airport continues to have high utilization. Our hangars are at capacity most every month. We have steady fuel sales. Corporate traffic is steady. Charter traffic, aerial application, flight training, and personal aircraft use has all been highly utilized and it's steady. In 2023, a couple of the big things we did were just finish the roof project on one of our big hangars out there. It was leaking and needed a new roof. And then our terminal is also about 20 years old, and the roof needed replaced as well. So a lot of our maintenance funds and things went for that. In 2024, 25, we're hoping to start a corporate hangar project, which would hopefully invite some other corporations that would rather use our airport, but instead are getting pushed to Fort Wayne and some other airports to facilitate their larger airplanes. So we're working through that, just the beginning stages of that project. We also have a couple other updates to work on for some hangars, insulation and flooring, and remodeling our terminal just a little bit to accommodate for the new parking situation, and getting a new vestibule. So those are just kind of some of the big things that we're hoping to tackle in the next couple of months, or excuse me, the next couple of years. As far as the budget goes, it shouldn't be too different from last year. Just a quick overview. Our 200 accounts remain the same overall. Any differences inside of the accounts themselves were just the way I coded, a way a lot of expenses were getting coded and stuff, so I was just trying to simplify that. But 13.2 is the same as last year. As we go to the 300 accounts, FBO, professional services, travel expenses, insurance all remain the same. We had just a little bump in electric, which from our appropriations was just a couple thousand. And the other major changes was just a little bit in equipment repair, and grounds maintenance went up from 20 to 30,000. We've got some bigger spots in the fences that were destroyed by some of the trees falling over from DNR property and things. So we've got a little bit more to do this coming year. And also we have annual tree trimming. For the NDOT comes and tells us how many trees we have to trim off of each approach end and things. So this year we're expected to have a little bit more. So that was our only major real increase for that particular group, the 300 group. The 400, the 35,000 down from 70,000 is our riverboat repayment, and hopefully that would be the final balance of what we owed the city for our hangar repayment, which should be in a couple years ahead of schedule. Our fuel farm repayment that we borrowed a couple years ago. So that is the balance of what we owe. And then the airport itself will be debt-free, and we're sitting in a good capital position. We have $450,000, I think, in our capital fund. So, and we just moved the extra $35,000 from last year. We've got some other big projects that were those ones that we mentioned earlier that we're hoping to get some head start on and some leeway on. So that is what happened in our capital funds and the 400s. But so. Boring as that is, if anybody has any questions, I can answer them at what's happening at the airport.
Yep. Well, how many businesses come to you, because you're at capacity pretty much, right?
Correct. Yep.
Say we could fly out of there, but we don't have room for them. How much bigger do you have to get to?
Yeah. So really what we've got now is the confining our limitation at our airport is basically how big the hangars are. So we can fit mostly just small general aviation planes, small single, small twin engine planes. And so our door heights are too short. So if someone has like a basic corporate aircraft, which might be like a King Air 200, let's say, or a small jet, we wouldn't have a place for them right now to store their airplane. So we've had a couple interested people in the past that have smaller airplanes that that a couple of businesses in Markle and some in Southwest Fort Wayne that have inquired. They haven't done a deep inquiry, but they've inquired as if we have any space, and we don't. Or if people come in from out of town and it's, let's say, snowing or icy, they have to cancel their trip into town because we don't have a place for them to thaw out or melt the ice. And so it's hopefully a tool for economic development, so that businesses who do want to come and invest in our community have a place for their hangar, for their airplane that we can accommodate. So
does your board have a long-range plan of what they want to develop?
As far as the overall
and stuff like what you're
yes,
talking about?
yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have we look out 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And our board now is I feel is very forward thinking, and we're always looking at how we want the airport to be in 15 or 20 years, and instead of just next year, the year after. So that's what we're trying to get accomplished. Is hopefully we can get to the size of an Auburn airport, which has we're about the same distance away from Fort Wayne, and they've got flourishing corporate traffic, and so there's no reason that we can't bring a good amount of that to Huntington as well. I don't think so.
Scott, you mentioned you had $450,000 in your capital fund.
Correct.
Is that revenue from FAA or from other sources?
It's everything. We make or we generate fuel sales revenue, hangar revenue through hangar rent and fuel sales, of course, and then we get infrastructure bill money at times. We've had the last couple of big deposits into our capital have been federal repayment money for if we built a hangar back in the back of the airport, let's say, and they were on a repayment plan. So more or less, the majority of the money comes in from federal repayment and also fuel revenue, hangar revenue, things like that. So I can get a more detailed answer. I'm not the financial guru there, but I can definitely get a breakdown. I think actually Christy sends me that pretty regularly, so I can send that to you.
Because a sufficiently sized corporate hangar
right
is going to cost a big number.
Correct. Yeah, we're hoping tomorrow we're getting some presentations from a local builder that's built several in the Kendallville, Angola, Fort Wayne area, and to kind of give us a number to look at. But I think it'll probably be anywhere in the 1.3 to 1.9 range, depending on if we have to go after federal money or if we can secure some funding some other way. So that saves us quite a bit of money if we can do that. So we're just in the very beginning, stages of the planning and trying to get hard numbers together and a way to get it funded. But
thank you.
Further questions from council? Thank you, Scott.
All right, thanks.
Next up will be Director of Operations Annette Carroll presenting on behalf of the Board of Public Works and Safety, Legal, and Mayor's Office.
Good evening, everyone. So first up, I am going to talk about the Board of Works budget. So as you will see in the 100 series, line item 111, there is an increase of $2,900 for the Board of Works members. So currently, Board of Works members get paid $180 a month for being a member, and that there's a proposal to increase that to $200 a month. So there's that increase. And then, as Mayor Strick said earlier regarding raises for city administrative positions, the janitorial position, that reflects a 7% increase for that line item. And then I'm going to skip over the 390, 391, which pertains to the Humane Shelter. Katie Hudson's with us, the president of the Humane Shelter. She will come up and speak to that. But you will see line item 397, the computer line item. That is funds that we pay back to the county for managing our IT systems, as well as it pays for various software programs that the clerk's office uses and Human Resources uses, and then Communications Department uses as well. And so, do you have any questions about that?
Why wouldn't the Board of Works members get 7% like everybody else?
So the 7% or the $20 raise is what was presented by the mayor.
But we're proposing 7% for everybody.
I'm not sure.
I just question is why that would be that much when everybody else is getting 7%.
The Board of Works, the members of the Board of Works they just serve on that board, and they give them a stipend, $180 a month, and we're just proposing to increase it. It's been increased like $5, and then over the past, it was $160, $175, $180. Now we're just proposing $200. It's $200 a month to serve on the Board of Works, which is 2 meetings a month. So that's why we just pulled that number out. We don't do a percentage for them since it's just a board. Yeah, they're not an employee. They just are a board member.
The difference in that situation would be $12.60 at 7% versus the $20 being proposed.
I was just wondering why they were different than anybody else.
Yeah.
So if you don't have any other questions, I would like to invite Katie to come up and just kind of give you guys an update on the Humane Shelter and then talk about the increase in her line item.
Good evening. So 2023 has kept us busy and on our toes at the Humane Society. The good news is more animals are finding homes than ever before in our history. Our programs are growing and our influence is continuing to grow. Public support continues to increase for the shelter as well, which is phenomenal. But conversely, that does mean that the demand for our services continues to grow, and we are seeing record numbers of animals in our door requiring pretty extensive care. And as with everything, the cost of services continues to go up, including the veterinary care that we're providing for these animals, as well as the additional staff that's required to really compensate for the increase of animals. So just to give you a little bit of perspective of where we're at today versus where we were last year, from January 1st until September 1st of this year, so 8 whole months of the year, we responded to 434 calls within city limits from animal control, 434 compared to 575 last year for city and county combined. So we are very much expecting to exceed the rate that we had of calls last year just within city limits. Animals too, again, record numbers coming into our doors. So far this year, 709 animals coming in just from city limits. Primarily cats, it's around 480 cats, about 200 dogs, and then we get our fair share of pigs, chickens, raccoons, and the other animals as well. So that's averaging about 151 animals a month coming in our doors. We have 16 dog kennels in our entire facility. And we've got about 30 cat kennels and 2 open free roaming cat rooms. So to say we are maxing out our services is very much putting it lightly, and we are very dependent on fosters to take animals into their own homes so that we can continue to provide care. We have had a great success and a great start with the Prevent-A-Litter, the trap neuter return program that the city funded last year. We are so far at 283 cats within city limits that have been spayed and neutered through the funding you guys have generously provided us this year. And so we're hoping to continue that for next year as well. Again, helping to reduce the amount of cats that are flooding the doors constantly at our shelter. So far we've used about $27,000 of funding of the 40. We do anticipate to use that remaining $13,000 before the end of the year. And we will have spayed and neutered probably around 500 cats just within city limits. And those are keeping those cats out of our shelter and in homes or in community environments that they're being cared for. So truly appreciate the support and the funding that you guys gave us last year, because it will pay and it will make a difference in the long run for our shelter. I mentioned that our staffing needs have increased as well as our veterinary care because of the animals. Our building continues to be a center of real problem and issue for us. That building was created 50 years ago, hasn't had a lot of renovation since, and we are feeling the ramifications of a very decrepit building. And so our projected needs for the building next year are rather high, just to fix and repair to get us in a safe and suitable environment for both the people as well as the animals in our care. So with all of that being said, what questions do you have about the shelter?
Now, you're located out there next to the tanks, is that correct?
We sure are, yep.
Okay.
Yep, behind the petroleum tanks.
So does your board have plans about expansion of a building and anything like that? Are you looking at that now and things?
2024 has capital campaign written all over it. Yes, we are very hopeful to start that endeavor so that we can move locations.
And you receive funding from the county also?
We do, yes. Okay. Yep, a little less than what we receive from the city.
Okay.
Not factoring in also the CAT program that you guys do.
Further questions for Katie? Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is the law department's budget. You will see that the overall budget is an actual decrease. And just to highlight, again, what Mayor Strick said earlier regarding the city's health insurance plan, we are able to decrease the amount out of everybody's budget because, as you guys hear me say every year, the city has been able to maintain its health insurance cost. We are seeing the benefits of our health and wellness program. The Know Your Numbers has really started to pay off, which is a big factor in driving those numbers down. We do have a younger workforce with retirements over the last 11 and a half years that I've been with the city. We've seen a lot of retirements and being replaced with a younger workforce. So probably in about the next 10, 15 years, you're going to see that big switch going the other direction at some point. So, and just so you know, this Friday is actually our health fair, and we usually have anywhere from 80 to 90 employees participate in that event. So, which is 3/4 of our staff. So, which the health and wellness program is really paying off. So, and then also, as far as the health insurance goes, another reason we can keep our price down is just looking at our plan design that we have in place, making sure we are giving the best bang for our buck to our employees, but also being able to keep our rates down as well. So any questions on the law enforcement, or not law enforcement, but the law budget?
On the health plan?
Yep.
We have sufficient reserves to,
Yes, so we do have sufficient reserves in place. We like to keep about $1 million on hand in case we have any type of a catastrophic incident that might happen to an employee. So just kind of explain how our health insurance works. The city is what is considered self-insured, so which means that we're responsible for up to, say, $100,000 for the number of individuals on your health insurance plan. So then the city has, that's called a stop loss. So then we have an additional insurance policy above that stop loss that will cover any of the cost above that $100,000. So we're really not on the hook for $100,000 per individual on the plan. You're really the cost for a catastrophic event. And fortunately, we don't have a lot of those catastrophic events that occur. So, and then the amount that is in each department's general fund appropriation in that 341 line item is what we pay toward our health insurance costs. And then what the employee contribution amount also goes toward that cost. And so I ran some numbers, and since 2007 up through 2022, our average expenses for our health insurance is right around $2 million. And then what we generate as far as revenue between the appropriation line item in everybody's budget, and then the contribution that the employees make is right around $2 million as well. And so we don't want to sit with $2 million in a fund. We would like to start eating into that reserve. And so by being able to decrease that line item, we're able to give more back to the employees as well, as in raises. So any other questions on that? So then moving on to the mayor's office, you will notice again, the increase is in the 100 series, which is the salary portion, the health insurance, but overall the mayor's budget actually will have a decrease. As Mayor said earlier, the across the board 7% increase goes for his office as well. And so what you have will go down. And just for everybody's information, so they don't have to get up here and repeat this, all the 100 series, you'll notice that the raises, but it's more than likely going to be a decrease in the 100 series because we were able to decrease that health insurance line item. So, and they'll all be thanking me back there so that they don't have to talk about it. So,
Any further questions for Director Carroll? Thank you. Next up, we have Director Adam Cuttress, Public Works and Engineering, presenting on City Hall budget, engineering, as well as the landfill.
Good evening. We'll go ahead and start with City Hall budget. Start with the, as you look, looks like all the lines are decreasing that there are any changes in. The gas, water, and electric for this building, we're decreasing all of those as we continue to adjust the budgets to fine tune for our usage now that the police department's not here. So that's what the decreases are you're seeing there. And then the big decrease is the building and fixed equipment line. The money we have in there this year is so that we can perform some studies on this building to figure out how to better utilize the space. And we don't need that big of a line for next year, quite simply. So we decreased it as we continue to look at that. City Hall budget is pretty straightforward. Any questions?
So is there any plans like the police area down on first floor?
Yeah.
Is there any discussion about using that?
That's what, so we had the $50,000 line in for this year in this year's budget. Okay. We decreased that to $25,000 between the money that's being spent now and the money that would go next year. That's what that is doing. Okay. That is how we're looking into better utilizing the entire first floor, and then as we figure out how to do that, the rest of the building.
But we're not really space crunched right now.
We are not space tight, no.
Okay.
Yeah, the previous administration actually has floor plan studies that we can incorporate into future action and renovations on the building. The primary concern for us that we're trying to engage is actually on the mechanicals of the building, because those have not been updated 30, 40 years.
Yeah, the last time this building saw any major mechanical renovations, HVAC, heating, cooling, water, sewer, any of that kind of stuff was about 1989, 1990.
We had some roof problems at one time.
That all got remedied in the mid-90s. The building envelope itself was all taken care of about 5 years ago when we did a whole envelope tuck point and cleanup of that whole building. So everything that is left is simply space utilization, layout, and mechanicals.
Okay. So there's going to be a study and ascertainment.
Yes.
On where everybody will go, what the needs are.
Yes.
For each department.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Needs of each department, and then once we figure out that, then we can look at how to better set up an HVAC system to handle the spaces. Right now, each office has its own individual air handler, and depending on the layout, that may not be necessary. So.
Further questions on City Hall? Okay. Adam?
Move to the engineering department. Jump straight down to the 200s. You'll see a slight increase in the other supplies line. Quite simply, we need to replace a bunch of batteries in our survey equipment. They're not cheap batteries, so unfortunately it's a fairly expensive adventure. The next big increase that you'll see is the copier credit card line. We have a large scale plotter in our office that is about 6 years old now, and we are starting to have problems with it. We will be leasing a new one. That way, should there be any issues, it's on the same kind of lease plan as our current printers and everything for this building. So, other than that, I mean, there was a decrease in the other equipment line. That was quite simply a new vehicle purchased last year. We obviously don't need to do that, so that line's gone, or decreased substantially. So, overall, this budget for the engineering department's down $13,000 from last year. Any questions? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to the landfill then. Jump straight down to the 200s again. As we, again, work to figure out what the closure looks like at the landfill, we're using less fuel for our vehicles. So we're slowly decreasing that line down to the point where we need it to be. So there's a $2,000 drop there. Everything else, again, is fine-tuning those supplies. Oil, same thing. House supplies and garage supplies, maintenance and cleaning equipment, that kind of stuff for our building out there. That stuff's gone up a little bit, so we need to increase that line. We reduced the attorney fees out at the landfill. Now that we're done doing all of the legal stuff necessary with the closure, we don't need as much money in attorney fees. We did, however, need to raise the other contractual services line. That is the line that pays for our SES. They are an environmental monitoring company that works with the city to make sure that we are in compliance with all groundwater, leachate pumping, methane gas monitoring for the landfill as we're in our closure phase. So quite simply, costs have gone up. So that's why that line's gone up a little bit. You will see in the equipment repair, that did go up $6,000. What that is for is so that we can rebuild some of our leachate pumps that we have in the ground out there to pump the leachate water out of the ground. We replaced one last year. That was the item down under other equipment. We have found a company that will rebuild them and convert them to stainless steel instead of having to buy a stainless steel pump. So that saves us substantially. Instead of buying a pump for about $5,800, $6,000, we can refinish one for about $2,000 a piece. So the money in there under equipment repair is quite simply meant for that. I think that's pretty much it. Any questions?
So we're pumping less leachate?
Yes.
All the time?
The amount of leachate we are pumping has substantially decreased over the last couple of years. We are still pumping, it is still there. These pumps sit down in there and basically live in this corrosive water that's in the liner that we're pumping out. So that's why they wear out. But yes, the volume that we have been pumping has gone down. Over the last 3 years, we've seen a decrease in about half. It has cut down to about half of what we were doing right after closure.
Further questions regarding the landfill?
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Clerk Treasurer Christy McElhaney presenting for her office, as well as on behalf of City Council and the inspector.
Okay. In the clerk's budget, the 1,000 series, that is half of our salaries because we get paid out of water and sewer, and then at the 7%. Then we have the other supplies increased. We are buying storage boxes to replace the ones that are out at the water plant in storage for all the old files. We're trying to move them here. And then the equipment, the furniture and fixtures is also for file cabinets. So we're trying to consolidate all the records that we have to keep forever and bring them to this building for storage with the other files we have. And so the stuff that's out at the water plant is kind of dirty and gross, so we're trying to put that in new boxes. So that's what those are.
How long do we have to retain that?
Well, personnel files forever.
Wow.
Yeah. We have the whole fire base to put it in right now. But yeah, and then the 3,000 category stayed at 13,000. So that's my budget. So mostly the increase is for storage, for filing. And, okay. Moving on to council, that will decrease because of the new proposal of 7%, like everyone else. And so that will change as presented next time when you vote. And then inspector is the weights and measures, which is Jim Michael's position. And that's a 7% increase. And that's the only thing he gets paid monthly. So that's divided by 12, at $2,000. What's he inspecting? The gas tank weights and measures. The gas tank, he has to put that sticker on to make sure that those are functioning. And then it used to be like deli scales and things like that. I think it's a state job, but we pay a portion of his salary.
Any questions for Christy?
And I apologize that they're not in the order. this year. But I will,
It is
when I
exciting.
fix it, I will bring you the right order for the when you vote. I am so sorry, I just realized that. I'll work on that better.
It's exciting, to say the least.
That's the worst thing.
I know you're all thinking it, so I just thought I'd apologize. Yes. Okay. Well, CDR is next, and they're right after council, so you should be good.
Thank you, Christy. We have Director Keplinger returning to the podium for Community Development and Redevelopment Budget.
We're all timing each other back there. Overall, overall, the department's budget decreased by $5,097, and that's primarily because the redevelopment, in addition to what Annette said, primarily because the redevelopment commission voted to increase the percentage of my salary and benefits that are covered from TIF funds. There has been and is anticipated that there will be an increase in the redevelopment workload for the department, and it was only logical and fair for the general fund to reevaluate those funding ratios. Therefore, we went from a 90-10 split to a 75-25 split, which was much more equitable considering how much of my individual time is devoted to each of those primary focus areas. Beyond that, and other than the related 100 series, our budget only increased $185, or just under 1%, which is pretty good given the economic conditions. We continue to run a tight budget. Just some anecdotal stuff about how things are going in the department. And just running them year to date, it remains steady and busy. We are on track for new home starts for this period this year when compared to last year, and the declared value of those new homes are up more than 27%, inflation at its finest. Commercial project numbers are up 47% year to date in terms of quantity, but the total values are down. It's not every year you have a $20 million new industrial building or a $14.5 million gymnasium or something like that. So, but overall, our year-to-date permit volume is up 18.75%. And so all indications are that that's not going to let up anytime soon, which can be both a blessing and a curse for our little office of three. And so I'm happy to go through in detail if you have questions about particular line items, but I think it's pretty straightforward what I've got.
Any questions for Director Keplinger?
Good job.
Thank you. I'm leaving.
Next up, we have Chief Tony Johnson presenting on behalf of the Fire Department.
Evening, everyone. Fire department budget, we got a few main increases, but pretty much like all the rest of the department heads, not a whole lot to change. I do have a few increases in the hundreds. Line 120, $11,000. That's just replacing our worn out turnout gear, keeping our rotations going. We got a couple of sets for new hires next year coming up. Clothing, again, that's $5,000. That's also to outfit new hires, hopefully having 2 of those next year. Instruction, we did increase that quite a bit, running the red a little bit this year. Sending the guys out to a lot more instructions, outside instructions, and we plan on sending 4 firefighters to Fort Wayne Fire Academy next year. So that's a pretty good chunk right there going to that. 200s pretty much stayed the same. Jumping down to 300s, building and construction, or building and structure increased $8,000. Our 2 buildings are getting older every year. We got one at 45 years old, other one at 22 years old, so we're just trying to maintain those, do the updates as we need it so we don't have things break down and cost more down the road. So that's just keeping things going there. Line 363, radio computer, shows an increase of $8,000, but we combined a couple lines there because we're just going back and forth. So it's we combined lines 397 and 363. So it's really only increasing $2,000, and that's just new computers for the fire trucks. The other big item is down in the 400s, other equipment, $7,500, and this is just we've got some equipment that's wearing out already from our work performance evaluation, so we're going to work on getting that replaced next year also. That's about all as a budget. I do plan on coming back to council in 2024. I know it's been a while ago, but a year ago I came in front of you guys, asked to purchase a new fire truck. We're anticipating that being delivered in May of next year. Since we're unsure of the price of that right now, we have some another truck that we're going to be trading in. So we're not sure what the actual amount is, so we'll just wait and come back next year and ask council how we want to appropriate those funds. Other than that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
So the training wise, are you sending extra training because it's a really good program that'll prepare you guys more?
Yeah, we send.
Or is it a state thing that you have to do so much?
No, we're ramping up our training. One of the big things is our ISO rating. We were really close to dropping down to a 2, our last evaluation. We were doing the training. We found out that we weren't recording it correctly. Now we fixed that. We've got a computer software now that records us all the way it needs to be recorded. They're very, very picky on the way they want those things set up.
What's ISO?
Insurance Services Organization. It basically brings down the price of the homeowner's insurance for businesses and everything in town by our rating.
Okay.
1 is the best, 10 is the worst. We're a 3. We're really close to a 2. And I don't have the stats on me right now. When I presented this to you guys last year, I think I gave you the stats on how few communities around are at a 3 and even fewer at a 2. So it's a big deal if we can get that down next time. So sending them to that outside training, it's better training. It's outside the box of what we can do. We have FDIC. It's one of the largest training in the nation, and we were lucky enough to have it in Indianapolis every year. So we send 4 to 5 guys down there every year. It's a little costly, but it's well worth it. They bring all that knowledge back and then share it with all the guys here. So that's a really good thing for us. Okay. All right.
Any other questions for Chief Johnson?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have our Communication Coordinator, Kevin Krosskoff, presenting on behalf of Communications with an assist from Director Carroll on behalf of Human Resources.
All right. Hi, everybody. Annette's gone over the 100 series for the communications and HR budget. The 200 and 400s are holding steady. Overall, the budget that we've established for communications continues to fit our needs really well. In the 300 series, I did want to point out 2 changes. One, the computer software line item, we're increasing by $600. That's because the software tool that we use to manage our e-newsletter, we hit the threshold of subscribers where that's not a free service anymore, so we had to increase accordingly. Also, as an office of one, I started using a writing assistant software to catch my typos, which I do make on occasion. So, all right. And then the other bigger change is that we're adding, excuse me, we're adding a contracted services line item for $15,000. This would allow us to augment our communications capabilities. An example would be, it would give me the ability or the option to hire an intern, to contract out with a media company for, a marketing or promotional push, or ideally, if I can make the numbers work, both. So, and that $15,000, although it's not reflected in this series, is actually offset elsewhere in the budget. Earlier this year, the county IT director approached myself and the mayor for assistance with the county website, social media, content, press releases, all of that. We reached an interlocal agreement. Some of the savings from the interlocal agreement where they're reimbursing the city for some of my time goes back to the general fund. The rest of it more than covers that $15,000 increase for contracted services.
Any questions for Kevin?
Thank you.
Next up, we have Superintendent Tim Bischoff presenting on behalf of the City Garage, MVH, and street budgets.
Well, good evening, everyone. I will try to keep this rolling like everyone else has. Starting off with City Garage, 1s, 2s, 3s. There is nothing new. We did add a 400 line this year. We currently have a lift that is from 1999. It's rated at 12,000 pounds. Some of these newer trucks are getting heavier, You can tell it struggles trying to lift them, so we're looking at replacing it with an 18,000 pound lift next year. So that is what that line item for 35,000 is.
Is that a dump truck?
No, that's
Lift.
just cars and trucks,
Okay.
pickup trucks.
Oh, oh.
Yes, yes,
I'm
it's a
sorry.
drive-on lift.
I couldn't hear it. Okay.
Sorry, Joe.
That's fine. All good.
Can you hear me now?
Any other questions on the city garage?
No, 35. 35,000. 35. Unless you've got a different printout than I have. All right, moving on, next would be MVH. In the 200 line, you'll see a savings on the garage and motor side. Obviously, with your help over the last 5 years, we've acquired a lot of new equipment, so, you know, a lot of maintenance costs have gone down because of that, so we're able to decrease this line moving into 2024. And in the 400 line, 441, the pickup truck, that's an every other year purchase. So this is the off year. We will not be purchasing a new truck. We will again in 2025. Any questions? MVH restricted. First off, you have an increase in sign and paint. That's mainly just materials. That's $1,500. As with everything, you know, raw materials, aluminum, sign making material has gone up. So that is the increase there. And then in the 440s, the capital expenditure for $50,000 is for a new digital sign printing machine. Now we currently have a plotter. It goes in, cuts out all the vinyl. We have to hand weed everything when we make a sign. With this new digital printer, just basically like printing out with your home printer. It'll print it on the prismatic and we'll lay it out on the sign blank. You can do multiple colors at once. If we're currently doing a sign that requires black and green, black, red, you know, we have to do the black, weed it, you know, and then we have to do the red, weed it, and overlay them. It's just so much easier. And plotter was purchased in the mid-90s, so it's had a good life. I mean, it's time to move forward with some technology. Depends on what it is. I mean, we regularly, I mean, street signs get stolen, get just degrade over time, or, you know, yep, I mean, it comes and goes.
So we make signs just for the city, or do we make signs for the county or anybody else?
Just the city. Yep. They have an old plotter. Yeah. But that would be a possibility. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, we could outsource to them.
Yep.
Further questions regarding
other
MVH or MVH restricted?
Yeah, that's what Kevin does.
Yeah. All right, finally, the street budget. Nothing in the 200s. 100s, you'll see a slight decrease in phone. That just over time, we've noticed, you know, just not using all that line item, so we'll put it back, and we use a lot of it up in the next line on electric. We've noticed the last couple of years, we've been toting the line in the red, so we're gonna increase that by 2,000 going into 2024. Next would be the subs and dues for the $2,500 increase. Back in the day, Dave can relate to this, you know, when you had automotive manuals, you had, you know, had to have a manual for each vehicle. You know, paper books don't exist anymore for vehicles. It's all digital. So the $2,500 is to get software for repair manuals for all the vehicles. So we can get all the manufacturers, Ford, Chrysler, General Motors, it'll all be digital. They can just look up whatever vehicle they're working on. And then you will see a large decrease in the motor equipment. The only thing that 75,000 will be going towards in 2024 would be our payment, lease loan payment on our 2 new dump trucks. Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Next up, we have Superintendent Steve Yoder on behalf of the Parks budget.
I bet you do. And I don't have a lot of answers. Good evening, everyone. So you can see we've done a real good job of dialing in the numbers we need for our budget. I will hop down to the 300. You'll notice that we did add a trail maintenance line this year. We get these trails added, and one thing we don't consider is the maintenance cost that it's going to eventually cost to repair some of the issues we're having. So we're going to add that this year. So other than that, we decreased pretty substantially the matching grant fund. We noticed we weren't using that as frequently as we could, so we're going to back that off until we can get back in line with that. And then the 400s are pretty well, the same numbers across the board. We'll add that in 24 we will be requesting an additional for a new truck. We need to replace one of our plow trucks, pickup trucks. So other than that, pretty easy.
Questions from
Come
Mr.
on,
Yoder.
Todd. Paul? Just, out of Evergreen, which was one of the first trails, it's just starting to deteriorate on the side, some of the asphalt and stuff, so it just needs to be cut out and replaced. There's a couple other spots throughout the trail system that need to have some attention, some TLC. Which one project? Oh, okay. Yeah, they should be concentrating on other things to vandalize. I agree. Yeah, they do a good job of spreading it out throughout the park system, so. Yeah. So as far as the mowing, so we are going into the second year of the current contract, but going into this year's, we took back, we do a lot of the city mowing, a lot of the city properties, and then we do Slack, Lori, Hires Park, the Ball Diamonds, Sunken Gardens. So we started to take some of the things that a crew my size can handle, started taking it back. So if you look at the past years, you'll notice the numbers have decreased. The number decreased this year from the years previous because we were able to eliminate some of that mowing. I'm sorry? Yes. Mm-hmm. But we have a lot less time to concentrate on maintaining a lot of other things, so.
Further questions for Steve?
Nothing. Wow. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next up, we have Chief Corey Boxell here to present on behalf of the Huntington Police Department's budget.
Good evening. So I'd like to, I'm certainly not going to go through every line item, but obviously you guys have a copy of it in front of you, and we've certainly made some increases and decreases throughout. A couple of things that I would like to highlight, however, though, in our 300 series, there's line item 392, and as you'll see that there was an increase to our subs and dues line item. Within that line item, we added, and some of these technologies and additions, I've come to you guys before and spoken to you on already, but just to give you a little bit of update as to what we're doing. So within that line item, we increased that to cover a contract that we signed with an organization, a company called Lexipol. So Lexipol, what it does for us is it updates and upgrades, keeps current our current policies and procedures manual. So one of the challenges that I encumbered when I took over this position almost 2 years ago is that some of the policies and procedures of our police department were almost 2 decades old. So this was really brought to light last fall when we applied for and received a significant grant from the federal government. And in acceptance of that grant, we had to make sure that some of our policies were up to federal law. And we discovered that they weren't. So after doing some research and talking to some of my cohorts, we signed a contract with the mayor's blessing for a company called Lexipol. So what they have done so far throughout the entire year of 2023, my assistant chief, Chris McCutcheon, my administrative captain, Andy Ellett, they've been meeting bi-weekly via Zoom with a representative from Lexipol that has walked us through our policy and procedure manual to update it extensively. And so now we're at the point of this process where we're just about to implement the new policies and procedures. So I am super excited about that. It will certainly help us as a department reduce our liability. It will help us stay better trained and more on top of the updated laws as they're ever changing, as we all know, and case law is certainly affecting that. So I'm excited about that, and that's the increase that you guys will see in line item 392. The other one I wanted to highlight for you is a new line item that we added this year, which is 396, and you'll see that titled Camera Systems. So again, I've come to you guys and talked to you specifically about some of these new technologies. Within that line item, there's actually 3 different systems that we're operating from, one being our flock cameras that you guys have heard me talk about, the other one being our body-worn cameras, and then lastly, we just last week finished the install of 21 new in-car camera systems through a company called Axon. So, you know, I know that I spoke to you guys extensively about Flock and what a blessing that program is for us. If you recall, those are the ALPR cameras that we have around the city. I think I spoke to you guys specifically about, you know, the double murder, quadruple homicide that we had last summer on the south side of the city, and how our neighboring community of Bluffton, you know, their utilization of those flock cameras really helped us solve that case. So after a lot of research, we signed a contract with that company in order to utilize that network. So, you know, in a recent incident we had that I'm sure our community is very well aware of and you guys have heard, but we had an individual who came to our community from came to our town from a different community, and he was suffering from a mental health issue and caused some havoc in our community a couple Saturdays ago and ended up inflicting a self-inflicted gunshot wound to himself. And, you know, the access that we have through that Flock network allowed us to see exactly where that individual had been all night long and help us to understand, you know, what kind of triggered some of the things that went on that day. And unfortunately, it brought a lot of turmoil to our community, but at the same time, you know, that technology helped us immensely in that investigation without going into too much detail. So the other 2 systems within that line item that I just mentioned are our body-worn camera program. That has been a real blessing for us. Not only does it help our officers have accurate recall to document cases as they work them in our process, but it also gives us the opportunity to go back and review and learn. As I like to say, right, some of your best training opportunities are from your own experiences, and those cameras certainly allow us to do that. From the in-car camera system, again, we finished installation on those systems just last Friday, so that's going to be another technology that we're certainly excited to look at in the future, but it's kind of new at the moment. So those are really the increases that I wanted to highlight for you guys. If you guys have questions, I'd be glad to answer those. But in looking to the future for our department, next year from a capital projects side of things, there's really 2 other things that we're looking to come back to you on and give you more information and ask for additional appropriations. And one would be the potential expansion of our shooting range. You know, we've been located out at the landfill for several years now. That facility has been very good to us, but there are some things that we would certainly like to upgrade, especially bringing our rifle program to that range, because currently we have to outsource that training at a different range because our range is not suitable to do that. So that's something that I will like to come back to you and talk about in the future for an additional appropriation. The other one would be our interview room camera system. So in 2011, state law requires us to record any potential felony interview. Obviously, our body-worn cameras help us with that immensely now because they're mobile and we can do that on site. But we also have an interview room camera system that is very degrading. We actually purchased that system in 2016 when we utilized the annex building across the street here. And when we built a new police department, we migrated that system to our current building. So that system needs some upgrading, and we're looking at doing that as well. So I'll probably be back to talk to you about that in the future. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
How many officers are outfitted with the body cam?
Everybody has their own individual. So, yep. Obviously, I'm not wearing mine tonight. We have an exception when you're in Class A. You don't actually have to if you're at a special event like City Council, but for the most part, if you see me at football games, athletic events, and I'm in my Class B, I'll have it on. But everybody has their own individual camera.
So do all the cars have the cameras then?
Not all. So when we signed this new contract, we purchased 21 camera systems. And the way we kind of came up with that number, Joe, is that we looked at our fleet as a whole, and we decided on the model year of 2017 and newer, which happened to total 21 cars. So as we replace cars, which we try to replace 4 a year, and we have those cars on an 8 to 10 year cycle, depending upon their condition. But as we replace 4 a year, we'll add systems to that package.
With the last addition, are we about full now on our force, or are we still?
Close. I wish. We're still hiring. So we just swore in 4, which is exciting. I don't know that we've ever sworn in 4 officers at one time, the Huntington City Police Department, that I'm aware of. But those 4 get us to just 1 short of our slated number. We're supposed to be at 36 officers. We're hoping to get there. So 1 more spot.
Okay, good.
Further questions for Chief Boxell? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, everyone.
Back around to Christie for some of the special funds in the budget.
Okay, at the end of the budgets, there's a few funds here that are mostly out of the tax rate. That's why they're at the bottom. Some of them are, like CCD and TIF are in the tax rate, but they're, the other ones are other, like debt service is not in the tax rate, and other funds that we appropriate that have money in them. Okay, so first is fire pension, and that only changed due to the, what the fire actives make and the percentage that increases, then that helps the pensioners get an increase in their pay. Same with police pension, and those are the first 2 pages here in the back. Public safety lit, that comes from the next page here. Public safety lit, we pay our police and fire active perf contribution, the city's contribution out of that fund, and that is an income tax rated fund, so that's where that money comes from. The next is CEDIT, which is also income tax, and that is the mayor's plan that is proposed, and we have to turn that into the county. It's a 5-year plan, and then and that can change throughout the year, and then you guys vote on that during the year on an executive order. And so I budget for what's remaining in those line items, excuse me, in June. And that's the numbers that, excuse me, and that's the numbers that I've come up with in the proposed budget. Okay. excuse me, rainy day. We've left that at $200,000 every year, and that's just, there's money in the fund. When I go over the fund report, I'll tell you how much is in that fund, but 200,000 is just appropriated that you're appropriating now to spend if something would come up and we just needed to, as an emergency, and needed to spend money out of that fund. Otherwise, we would come back to council, and we would probably come back to council anyway just to explain what we're spending, but this is just as an emergency, something to appropriate for that fund. The next one is CCD, which is cum cap development, and that is for any kind of lawful expense in the city, and we just budget $150,000 every year for that, and we don't usually spend it. If it's something like we want to make up the difference with sidewalks or streets or something like that, we may use those funds for projects. And then CCI is cumulative capital improvement, and that comes from the state money, and there's usually not much to appropriate in that, but that can be used for improvements like sidewalks and streets and that, if there's something. So we appropriated $50,000 in there. Local road and street, between Tim and Adam, they use these funds for any street improvements, and between local road and street, this comes from the state as well. We get monthly money in there, and we have to track this in a report yearly with the MVH money, which is motor vehicle highway that Tim reported on, and then local road and street. So those are for street improvements throughout the city, and we usually add these expenses on the street paving project for the year. Then we have TIF, which is the fund that Bryn works with and budgets and spends. And then TIF Synergy is a bond for Metronet. We bonded with them so that they can make improvements through the city for infrastructure. Let's see. And then Geo Bond and Landfill Bond, those are payments. We have an amortization schedule we go by, and this is a payment. It's out of the tax rate maximum levy. It's debt service. And then also the stormwater bond. So those budgets are the bond payments from the amortization schedule that get approved each year. So those are pretty much the other funds that don't affect the tax rate, but we still have to budget for them or appropriate for them, and so that's part of the approval process. Any questions on those?
Fund and the other one, the 150 you put in there, if that's not used, it just goes to next year's budget, but we still budget for it, or it's?
We just carry that budget. We're appropriating it, but it stays in the cash. If we
Okay.
don't spend it, it just stays in the
All right.
cash fund.
Further questions or discussion on special funds? Okay, not hearing any others at this time. Council members, any further discussion or consideration of the budget at this time?
In looking at the 7% compensation, is that number pretty common in the area? I guess I went into DLGF and I was looking at what our average compensation per employee was compared to surrounding areas, and it's a bit low. And I know that starting in '08, the city went many years with little or no pay raises. And considering that a lot of our fiscal health in that 100 series especially is because the employees are doing well, with their health care. And I just throw it out there. I wonder if an additional reward for them in doing well with the health care, I think 7% is good. 8% would be, hey, well done, job well done. I just throw that out for the council to think about. I don't know if you want to talk about that at some point, but I know there's probably some catch-up that could be done, I think. Maybe we could do a little catch-up this year. We seem to be fiscally solid. It's not always going to be the case, as in past years when we haven't been, and our employees went with little or no pay raises. So I just offer that up for food for thought, and if anybody wants to get with me and talk about that, we can.
I'm kind of with you on that. I'd be interested in looking at 8% to at least see the numbers to accommodate everyone and keep everybody happy. So that's a huge plus, especially in today's workforce.
We do have to be careful, though, because whatever we give has to be sustainable.
Yes, I agree.
We have to keep doing it every year. They're not going to take a pay cut later because we were really nice to them this time. So we got to really watch that, because it's just, I mean, the money's coming in now, but it doesn't mean it's going to continue to come in if something goofy happens nationwide. So I just want to make sure we can keep their pay and not have a roller coaster.
And I somewhat hesitated in bringing it up based on that observation, because it does have to be a sustainable thing, yet, and as was noted earlier, the workforce may get older and we're going to have to adapt to it. And that may happen years down the road. But right now, I think I'd be willing to look at the numbers, like PJ says, and see if it works, see where the surpluses are and how the budget fits together, and if it's just something we can think about.
I do understand that the 7% has kept us up with inflation, like you had talked about. Chris, actually, do any of you know what the highest increase in pay that we've done in the past is? Like historically?
7.
Seven would be the highest.
That
So
we've ever given.
what was it,
Right.
5 last year?
6.
6? Was it 6?
It was 6.
Yeah, 6 and then 7.
Well, that's a pretty steady increase, and staying up with inflation is definitely important, so. Maybe look at the numbers and just see what it offers.
We ran the numbers a little bit, Annette worked on that and myself, and we could do 8% with the decreasing of the council and the mayors down to the 8%, and it's not much higher. I mean, it's within the 4% increase that the maximum levy that the state allows. So it went up like a 0.01% in that.
For council's benefit, we can bring that scenario back
But yes, I need to
ahead of
know
time
so
for
that
your
I can
consideration if you would like, but
bring the
we would
numbers
like
to you,
indication.
and then you guys can vote, because obviously this isn't a vote, this is a discussion, and that's
Right.
what tonight's for. Just so I know what to do to bring back something so that you can vote on it.
And
So,
as far as competitiveness,
yes.
There's a group called AIM, and they email back and forth, and they're asking for advice from different towns and stuff. And none of these are bigger towns, but a lot of the towns are 3% and 4% increases this year, not anywhere near 7%. And I just want to make sure we can maintain it. I mean, our responsibility is fiscal, not just the year here, down the road. So I just don't want to get too Santa Claus-like, and then we can't keep it up. I just, you got to be careful with that.
Yep.
Right, the management decision, the way I look at it is, when you divert money into human resources, then you may be taking it away from capital projects and buying new trucks and equipment and vests for policemen and all that. Yeah, that's all got to be balanced. But my main thought was, the healthcare is where some of the savings is, and that's because the employees have done that. that's why I started thinking, well, then they should see a bit of a reward. I think I mentioned that maybe the last year or two, because they've been doing so well in healthcare.
But you can also ask anybody that works for a living, and there's nobody that I know of getting a 7% increase at any business. So we gotta, I mean, I want to be good to them, but.
That's also where the competitive comes in at, though.
Yeah.
The administration, when you plugged in the 7%, were you comfortable with that 7%? Is that why you plugged in 7%?
Yes. And again, it's a matter of math. We can bring those numbers back for council for your consideration. And another item, in 2020, as we were looking at the 21 budget, we obviously had very significant concerns about the global economy. And, so one of the approaches that year was there was an increase, and then there was an additional bonus that was awarded later in the year. It was not a guaranteed bonus, but it was depending on how we saw things shake out financially in the global sector. So that is another approach and strategy the council can consider as well. So we can run those scenarios.
Yeah, that's another thought. I like that idea too. Do the 7%, do a stipend later. I'm looking at hiring people and retaining them. It's easier to retain them than hire them.
7% is a lot.
We need to have breakfast, man. We can talk about it.
Yep. So obviously, it's clear that council may benefit from additional data for consideration and debate and discussion around it. And each of the council members will have to determine where their comfort level is in light of what's going on in other sectors of the economy as well as this one. So we'll be glad to present some options and bring those in for you. We'll get those numbers turned around to you promptly so that you have due consideration. So, any further discussion or consideration? Okay. We'll go ahead and close discussion of the 2024 budget at this time. Of course, there will be further discussion as it's brought up for actual consideration by council. Under miscellaneous, we have Christie again with the August monthly budget reports and financials.
Okay, yes, so each of the funds that we are proposing on, like general fund as a whole, we're ending the month of August at $5,707,000. Park fund is $396,000. Airport fund is $46,900. Landfill $179,000. MVH is $1.5 million, and MVH restricted is $490,000. Our funds are in line with how they have been, and so everybody's holding the line on their spending, and so things are looking well. I had mentioned the TIF fund rainy day fund has $728,000 in it. And we have no expenses out of that. And then I gave you a CDIP breakdown as well. So, yeah. And I would, as long as I know the percentages that I'm proposing are within the 4% or under the 4% maximum levy that the state allows, I feel comfortable with those numbers. And they are sustainable with the fund balances that we have. So I just wanted you to know that going forward. But yes, we will bring you those numbers, and I will put them in the order that we're going to talk about them.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're at 7, 10, and 13, right?
That's where we're at now.
That's where we're at tonight.
That's why I
and
don't
I'll
want to
bring
go too far,
you
because we got a truck we need, we got
both.
police.
But I mean, our
we need,
discussion, we're at 7,
airport we
10,
need
and
to move up.
13.
Oh, correct.
So, because you needed a figure so you could continue, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to advertise it in Gateway. That's the next step. And then that we can only go down from there when you're voting at the end of the month at our first budget hearing.
On the overall.
on the overall budget, yes.
You can shift within.
So that's where we're at now, and I will put the higher number in so you can bring it down. And to make sure that the higher number works, once I have the numbers in.
The higher number as 8?
Yes, 8, 13, and 10. That's what I'll advertise, and then we can reduce from there. Because that's, I mean, and you'll have both numbers in front of you of what you're voting on.
Okay, further discussion or questions by council members? Not hearing any at this time. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.